Welcome to Understanding Conscious Cryptids with me, Khat Hansen. I am bringing you this show in an attempt to educate you about the forgotten creatures and beings that exist alongside of us on this amazing planet that we call home. Many of these hidden beings are elusive and highly intelligent. Our ancient ancestors of North and South America knew of and understood these beings quite well. Many people are coming into contact with these elusive creatures, and they do not have any knowledge or understanding of what it is they are seeing and interacting with. This oftentimes leaves these individuals fearful and confused. It's my intention to shed some light and share knowledge through this series. I am going to help alleviate that fear and confusion. It is time for the light to shine through the darkness. If you are interested in sharing your encounter, contact me directly at khathansen@yahoo.com, and I hope you enjoy the show.
Hi everyone, it's me, Kat. Welcome to Understanding Conscious Cryptids. You know, today I thought I'd do like a discussion because I really wanted to talk about the stay-em-off for a minute, and I wanted to tell everyone that I want to state my honest opinion here that there is no missing link. Yeah, I know, big shock, but to me stay-em-off are something else entirely. You know, they may look similar to us and they are bipedal to us like ourselves, but they pursued a wholly different evolutionary path tangential to ours. You know, to its relatives, to the other great apes. You know, this makes them sort of like our first cousins once removed. Yeah, I know, you can't marry them, even though you want to. They have shown me that they possess intelligence equal to, and in some instances, greater than our own. I have enormous faith in them, okay? I know that's a lot to say if you've never met one, but they have been blessed with mesomorphic characteristics of our mutual cousin, the apes. That's to say, they are muscular in the extreme, resulting in a density that renders it quite proportionally heavy for its size to us humans. What I'm saying here is that these guys are big in stature and they're really, really thick. Okay? This you guys can relate to by saying the reports that you've heard about where the head sits directly on the shoulders, it looks like, and the trapezius muscles look like an overgrown football player. You know, they just got this enormous thick shoulders, broad neck type thing where it just looks like cords, and that's pretty much what we're talking about here. These guys have enormous musculature. Okay, they are omnivores, they're omnivorous, and they do not hibernate. I don't care what anybody says, they don't hibernate. I have never seen one that hibernates. Okay? I'm not saying that they don't sleep. Okay? These guys do sleep. But they do not hibernate. Okay? These guys travel as much as 50 plus miles a day. Okay? Doing the hunter-gatherer thing. I've talked about this extensively with my group. Okay? Different groups also migrate to warmer areas entirely seeking food, and also birthing areas. Okay, so you know, you're looking at the colder areas, wetter areas where they move down, you know, and they migrate to areas where food is more plentiful, and where they also have groups so that they can have birthing groups. Okay, much has been speculated as to their diets. It seems well nigh impossible to some experts for their ability to maintain their high muscle mass and weight in the forest and desert settings of the United States. But when you understand that over 90% of their day is spent looking for and consuming food, and added to the fact that the only thing that I have ever seen them not eat is another stayama, then the realization hits that there is literally more than enough food anywhere to keep them healthy. Okay? These guys will eat your bird seed and your squirrels too, thinking that you called them in as a treat for them. Okay? The same is being said for any kind of bird. And oh yes, please keep an eye on your family pets, because these are going to be construed as, you guys are gifting them, as fair game. They're thinking you called them in as treats, okay? And unless you have a rapport with your specific stayama in the area, other than providing food, then they're going to think these guys are food, okay? I'm sorry. That's just the way that they are. I've told the story before of a gentleman that I knew growing up in Oregon who had these big German Shepherd dogs, and the stayama ate them, and they thought they were being kind by putting the heads into his garbage can. I mean, and I'm laughing not to make light of the situation. I mean, it is, to me, it's ironic, because I had told him, you need to let them know that these guys are not food, because he would always say, well, it's no big deal, they always will be able to tell that they're not food. And I was like, no, you need to tell them they're not food, because you put them out where you feed them, and they're going to think that you're offering them as food as well. You're not giving them any delineation, you're not delineating these two dogs as pets, as off limits. And you're staking them out where you feed these guys, and these guys are going to think that you're offering them up. Well, that's what they did. And in return, they gave him the heads back. Well, needless to say, he was very upset, and decided to go hunt, the Sasquatch, because they killed his dogs. Well, it wasn't their fault. They thought they were doing right by giving him the heads back, so that he could bury them or do what he wanted to with them. But the point being, these guys look at everything like food. And I mean, they eat everything. Juniper berries, they eat skunk. These guys eat skunk, for goodness sake. I mean, things that humans would not eat, they will eat. They pull up whole nests of mice, rats. I've talked about sitting down with them as a kid and, being handed a nest full of baby mice, and expected to eat them. You just pop them in your mouth like grapes, and that's the way that they are. They expect you to eat them. Anything and everything is considered food to these guys. Okay, so to them, what you don't mark as off limits, if you have some sort of rapport with your Bigfoot group, then I always say the onus falls on you. Okay? Especially if they are not hibernating. If there is a good source of water in the area, then there's also a good source of food. Cats, dogs, birds, rodents, you know. And I know people say, ooh, rodents, you know. Well, there's no mice in my neighborhood. There's no rats in my neighborhood. Okay, well, someone in your neighborhood might feed the squirrels. You know, do you have lizards in your neighborhood? Because where I live, we have lizards. You know, big lizards, you know. 8-inch long lizards, you know, and they eat those things like there's no tomorrow. You know, they just scoop those up, 1, 2, 3, and pop them in. I mean, they just go. Gardens are big ones. Sunflowers, whole rows of sunflowers go missing. You know, it's nothing. These huge head of sunflowers. You know, I've got some that my really good friend Wacko sent me from the Dakotas that I'm planting again this year. And these guys are going to be absolutely huge, you know, and these things are just going to vanish. I already know it, because they're going to be eaten, and there's no stopping them. And that's okay, you know, these are, I plant for them too, you know, as a food source. But the point that I'm making here is all the trees, you know, pine cones, pine nuts, you know, all these things that are edible. Golf course down the way has koi in its ponds, has trout in its ponds, you know, crawdads in its ponds, frogs. All these things are edible. So there's plenty of food. You know, I get tired of hearing the naysayers, you know, speak up and say, oh, there's no way that they can be supporting themselves with their diets on this, because there's just not enough food. That's not true. There's more than enough food here, okay, to support the muscle mass, to support the way that the musculature has been developed in these guys. It is extreme. The extreme bone density, you know, for the size that these guys are. I always like to stress this, because people really need to get that not only are these guys tall, but you think about the weight to height proportion, okay? Why are they so heavy? Well, they have to be heavy. The toes have to grip, you know, into the dirt and the terrain to lift this muscle mass, this dense body mass, you know. And think of the bones. The bones can't just be your normal skeletal bone proportion. They can't. They have to be a much denser mass, because they're holding up that musculature, okay? The hide that you hear so much about, the skin of these beings is so much denser. You know, bullets bounce off of it. Think about it. It has to be, because they live in the wilderness. It has to be a tougher hide. It has to be a thicker skin to be able to live in the weather and be able to protect these beings against the weather and the sharp, pokey things that are out there in the wilderness. Porcupines, sticks, rocks, you know, anything sharp that they're going to run into, you know, the occasional bullet from a human, you know, knives from humans. And yes, you just heard that big growly thing. That was Genghis Khan snoring in my video. Thank you, Genghis. He's just thrilled by all of this. So, I just want to make this point, okay? These guys that are out there whether you want to accept the fact that they are a missing link or not. Okay? And I don't believe that they're a missing link, because they existed alongside of us. So how can they be a missing link? They were here before us and existed alongside of us. no matter what. So they've watched, they've learned, so they're not the missing link. They're something else entirely. And with that, I'm going to end this little short video so that the next one, hopefully I will have the hang of making them and we can go from there. Because the next one is going to have some pictures and I want to point some things out to people in the hopes that we can kind of do a Q&A here. And that will be that, I think, for this one. Bye, everybody.